can't control what Congress does, and we've told the Russians this. Not now, 6-8 weeks ago. I believe, Senator Shaheen, you were involved in a conversation that made it clear to the Russians what would happen if there was no progress made. And that's been repeated multiple times. I would also make this point, and it's important. Every single sanction, not one sanction has been lifted on the Russians. Every single sanction that was in place under the previous administration remains in place. So this idea we've given up leverage, well, the only we have the same leverage today that we had under the previous administration.
Well, Mr.
Welcome back to the Constitution Corner, where America's roots guide its future. If you believe in peace through strength, if you're tired of weak foreign policy that sends mixed signals to our enemies and piles debt onto the backs of hardworking Americans, then hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because today, we're cutting through the political fog and reacting to yet another revealing exchange on Capitol Hill about the ongoing crisis in Ukraine, and more importantly, about how the Biden administration is handling it. Or should I say, mishandling it?
Mr. Secretary, I would argue that the leverage that we've given up is taking NATO membership off the table, taking away a commitment to continue to help the Ukrainians with intelligence sharing and with military equipment and arms that they need to help fight this war.
Well, that continues. There was a pause for 1 week. All of that was restarted.
That was intelligence sharing, though, but it doesn't cover the equipment and arms.
Oh, absolutely. That program has not been rescinded. They continue to receive armaments from the United States.
And we continue to fund what the Ukrainians need as the president, and are you prepared to pass another supplemental bill to support them?
Well, that's a different decision. That's a different question. That's not up for me to decide. The White House would have to make a determination about whether to come to Congress for a supplemental. But everything that's been approved and congressionally appropriated is ongoing. In fact, to the extent that the Ukrainians have asked for anything additional, what they've asked for is air defenses, Patriot units, which frankly we don't have. But we are working closely with our NATO allies. There are NATO allies that do have some batteries of Patriot missiles that they could provide or transfer over to the Ukrainians to defend, for example, the airspace of Kyiv and other places. And we've been encouraging in that front and working alongside our partners there to get deliveries of some of these systems. As you can imagine, none of these countries want to give up their Patriot systems either. But we can't make them fast enough, and part of the challenge we have in Ukraine is that munitions are being expended substantially faster than the ability of the broader West, not just us, but the West, to produce them. Now, that said, on the issue of Ukraine, here's what we can all agree on. There is no military solution to this crisis.
Right.
It will have to end in a negotiated settlement. And the fundamental challenge we have in Ukraine is this. Russia wants what they do not currently have and are not entitled to, and Ukraine wants what they cannot regain militarily. And that's been the crux of the challenge.
I don't disagree with that at one level. But on the other hand, what Vladimir Putin is doing now is playing for time. And he's playing this president like a fiddle. And the longer he plays it, the more opportunity he has to gain territory in Ukraine, and the harder it's going to be to get him to the table. What we need to do is to put pressure on Vladimir Putin in every way we can to ensure that we can get them to the negotiating table.
Well, I disagree with this playing with a fiddle analogy, because the truth of the matter is when Vladimir Putin woke up this morning, he had the same set of sanctions on him that he's always had since the beginning of this conflict, and Ukraine was still getting armaments and shipments from us and from our allies, and the European Union is about to impose additional sanctions, and the U.S. is looking for no Patriot batteries to be able to transfer from other NATO nations into Ukrainian hands. And what the president's trying to do is end a war. He's trying to end a bloody, costly war that neither side can win, and people are dying every single day. But this notion that, what has Putin gained throughout this? He hasn't gotten a single concession. He hasn't gotten a single sanction lifted.
And the more time he gets without additional pressure on Russia, the more incentive he's got to continue to gain territory and continue to play for time.
Now let's make something clear. We all want peace. We all want this war to end. No American should cheer for continued conflict. But the way you achieve peace matters. And you do not achieve peace by showing weakness, pausing aid, or sending confusing messages to the world's most aggressive autocrats. What we just heard was an attempt to defend the indefensible. Officials claiming that sanctions are still in place, so we haven't lost leverage. Really? So let's walk through this logically. Yes, the sanctions are technically still on. But the United States also paused military aid for a week, during a time when Ukrainian soldiers are getting slaughtered by Russian missiles. For one whole week, we left our allies in the lurch and were being told that didn't cost us leverage? You can't be serious. Biden's team took NATO membership off the table. That was leverage. Gone. They paused weapons shipments. That was leverage. Gone. And now they want to argue that they're still tough on Putin? Let's be blunt. Vladimir Putin is not afraid of this White House. He sees hesitation, he sees internal division, and he sees a president more interested in optics than outcomes. And while Biden dithers, Putin seizes territory, tests NATO, and plays for time, just like one senator put it, playing this president like a fiddle. Now they're saying Ukraine wants more air defense, Patriot systems. But guess what? We don't have enough. We can't produce them fast enough. So now we're begging NATO allies to send theirs. Does that sound like leadership to you? Does that sound like America first? We are the greatest superpower the world has ever seen. And yet, this administration has allowed our strategic reserves, our defense stockpiles, and our reputation to dwindle to the point where we can't even meet our own commitments. Not because we lack the capacity, but because we lack the leadership. And here's the worst part. They're already floating the idea that there is no military solution, just a negotiated settlement. Let's decode that for what it is. They're preparing to sell Ukraine out. They're setting the stage for Ukraine to give up land. Land that Russia invaded. Land that Ukrainians have bled for. Land that, once surrendered, will only embolden tyrants across the globe, from Moscow to Beijing to Tehran. Weakness invites aggression. History has taught us that time and time again. But the Biden administration seems more interested in press releases and podium diplomacy than actually solving the problem. We don't need another endless war. But we also don't need a president who lets America get played like a fool. So what should we do? First, stop pausing aid in the middle of a war. You want a strategy shift? Fine. Debate it, legislate it, but don't slow-roll allies in real time. Second, demand production of U.S. weapon systems ramp up immediately. America must never be in a position where we're scavenging for missiles. Third, cut the confusion. Either you're backing Ukraine until victory, or you're not. Either you're defending freedom, or you're not. But don't pretend to do both and end up doing nothing. This channel is about restoring truth, reason, and resolve. And right now, America needs all three. We must hold our leaders accountable, not just for what they say but for what they fail to do. So what can you do? Share this video. Comment below what you think America's role in this war should be. Call your representatives and tell them we need clarity, consistency, and strength, not dithering, division, and delay. And subscribe to the Constitution Corner, where we stand firm, speak truth, and defend America's role as a force for good in a dangerous world. We are the Constitution Corner, where Americans' root guides its future. Until next time, stand strong, speak truth, and may God bless the United States of America.